Yeah. So do you think Uber and Lyft should have to treat drivers as employees?
I do think the employee model again has been established and
Hmm.
sets a fair set of boundaries that almost every other industry needs to comply with,
Hmm.
and I think that there are subsidies basically built in
Hmm.
to Uber and Lyft in particular for not complying with those regulations. In particular, we mentioned some of them. I mean,
Hmm.
if a driver has an accident or their car breaks and they can't work anymore, uh,
Right.
workers' compensation is a required part of an employee model because if somebody's hurt at the job, the company is responsible for paying that. In an Uber or Lyft context, that driver probably, most of the time won't have health insurance. They're going to go to a public hospital, and you and I are going to pay for that out of
Yeah.
our tax dollars. So we're all in some way, paying
Hmm.
pennies every time and subsidizing those cheaper fares. So the trade-off is, should we collectively as a community, as a state, as a country, be making it cheaper for people to get a ride,
Yeah.
and who again is benefiting from that? The company, certainly. I don't think the driver, but what are those trade-offs? And I think they're pretty complex. Again, I know we're running out of
Hmm.
time, so we don't have to. But I think this is why we believe that it's not as easy as what people kind of prefer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other underlying factors that should influence decision making that don't always get talked
Yeah.
about.
I mean, usually if you're the only person that believes in something, you're either really wrong or really right. So hopefully it'll be the former for you. And, the last thing that I wanted to touch on, I saved the best for last because, that's how I roll. And you mentioned employee independent contract. Obviously, we know that Alto uses this employee model. Do you think all this debate, the Prop 22, it's now, going to be going on a state by state? Massachusetts, I think, is the next state where this fight is now building and gearing up. I think for the fall, there's going to be a lot of fireworks, let's put it that way, and probably a lot of money spent. Do you think that all this talk is good for Alto, or how do what do you think about, like, I don't know what you call it, but like all this debate over employee versus
Yeah,
IC? Do you think it's good for Alto or bad, or doesn't really matter?
absolutely. I mean, we've obviously taken a very specific point of view on this. I think
Hmm.
I've been clear on it. I feel like the employee model has been created in the U.S. For a very specific reason, to provide very specific protections that level the playing field, and that exist pretty much universally across all industries, and that it's the right model, and
Hmm.
so we believe not only does it make our business different and better, but that it's the right thing to do for our
Yeah.
people, and that by doing the right thing for our people, they're going to do the right thing for our customers. So um, we definitely think that this is going to continue to play out. We know that we are a small but growing voice in this debate, and it's a big part of why we're expanding to take our voice to more places, and
Hmm.
showcase that
Yeah.
there's not only one option.
Right.
It can be done differently. There are trade-offs. I mean, we talk about those a lot, and we probably don't have time to get into all of them today. There's certainly trade-offs,
Well, give me one.
and
What's the one trade-off
I mean,
in your mind?
I think the biggest trade-off is flexibility. I
Hmm.
think there is a question on flexibility, and what does flexibility really mean?
Hmm.
Certainly in an employment model, you can't just wake up and decide you're going to work.
Right.
That doesn't exist in any employment model. That does exist in Uber and Lyft. You can decide, right now you could end this and go start driving and drive for an hour, 10
Yeah.
minutes, whatever you want to do. But there is form of flexibility, right? We give
Hmm.
our drivers the ability to pick their shifts. They can
Yeah.
select when they want to work. And then, they get the benefit of consistency. And I think that's one of the biggest is
Hmm.
how important is it to really allow somebody to work, just on a whim?
Yeah.
And for the people that flexibility doesn't really exist for, because they need to work full time anyway.
Yeah.
There's only so many 40-hour windows in somebody's week, or let alone 80-hour
Right.
windows. That's how much you need to drive in order to pay for your rent and your car and,
Yeah.
and your family. That flexibility diminishes, and should we be protecting those people, or protecting the ability for a college kid to earn $100 on a Friday night?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to put it. And I actually, kind of agree with you in that I actually do think that there's almost too much flexibility, on Uber as an Uber and Lyft driver right now. Cause frankly, you never really you've almost never, log on and just go do a trip on a whim, right? And if you lost that ability, it's not that big of a punishment, right? But I do think there is some, we sort of saw this play out in New York City where drivers had this free for all, where they could drive whenever and wherever they want. They got this minimum wage that actually paid them a lot more based on their utilization. And the TLC has released data. Drivers are making a lot more from it, but they hate it, the system, right? Because they know what it was like before, right? So it's sort of like, I think if they would have come into the system, so I bet it's important for, whether it's Alto or new companies or whoever, right, to kind of, establish the way things are going to be right from the start and say, hey, we give you some flexibility, but you don't have the complete flexibility, to do one trip and then log off, which frankly, you really don't want to do anyways
Yeah.
as a driver.
We're super. I mean, I think we understand those trade-offs. We try to
Mm-hmm.
be very explicit with people that are looking to come work for us.
Yeah.
This is what you get. This is what you don't get.
Set the
We
right
think that
expectations.
that those expectations are clear, and frankly, again, we think that they are. We think it's a fair trade,
Mm-hmm.
more than fair, and that we are really creating something that's competitive,
Yeah.
and valuable for a large segment of drivers as well. And so yeah, but again, competition and options is great, and so we welcome other ways.
Yeah.
We believe our way makes a lot of sense, and we're going to continue to to compete on that too.
Yeah. So